Hey everybody, Philm Brown here at the Movies with Film. You know, we have a lot of fun on this show and sometimes make a lot of fun of the things that we show and goof around a lot, but you know, we can be serious as well. I'm thinking a lot about the film that we're showing. I've done a version of this before, The Ape, 1940. And I want to be kind of serious about this because, yeah, it's a monogram film. It was a film that no doubt played at the bottom of the bill. But these are real people, real craftsmen, real artists, in many cases, who worked on these films. People that made a living. People who, well, like we always say, got by and did what they had a passion for. Be it you call it an art, be it you call it a craft. But we should take this stuff seriously. If we don't take it seriously, who will? Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the key people in this film. One of the interesting things about the studio system, be it monogram, sure, monogram is something that, is low rung and things like that. It's not MGM, okay? But it still brought together a pool of talent. People who worked together. This is made again in 1940, and it brought together a number of people who at that time was, were working together on other projects. For instance, William Nye, Boris Karloff, Harry Newman, and Russell Shungarth all worked together, okay, at this time making this film, The Ape. But they also were working on the Mr. Wong films, and we've shown the Mr. Wong films on our show. Boris Karloff, of course, one of the great actors of all time. It's kind of interesting to think about him in some ways, a lot of times people want to poo-poo the kind of, the B films and things, saying, well, they were just hacks, and they used Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. as examples. And of course, they were good actors in their own right, but Boris Karloff was a guy who, you look at what he does, he brings a lot of humanity to his works. Even in this film, as he plays the mad scientist who's trying to, mad scientist is misunderstood. He's really not a mad scientist at all. He's trying to find a cure for polio. And how to do that? Well, using that tried and true formula at the time is using spinal fluid of some type, injection to find this cure. Now, it's not using ape spinal fluids, as you see in some films, but he's using human fluids. How does he get it? Well, he gets it by drawing it from people while he, dresses up like an ape. Out of a circus, an ape breaks loose, and he kills the ape, and he skins it, and he uses that as a way to, do his deal. Now, that's kind of an interesting circus angle. Boris Karloff, though, as that scientist, and as that doctor, brings a lot of human, oomph to that role, if you will. I feel him. And of course, we know Boris Karloff is a fantastic actor. See him soon after these monogram films. He's going to move over to RKO and work with the likes of Val Lewton, with Bedlam, Isle of the Dead, a series of films that really allow him to project that poetic self, Body Snatcher. And of course, we see him as he goes through and does other stellar acting jobs. I came up with this idea talking earlier about the studio bringing together certain talents. Certainly Boris Karloff working on the Mr. Wong films with William Nye, who directs this. He was doing the Mr. Wong films, also known for doing a lot of Western. Likewise, Harry Newman was the cinematographer on this film. Not only did he also work on the Mr. Wong films, but he would later countless Westerns that he worked on, but he worked also with Roger Corman much later on. Wasp Woman, Russell Shungarth, who was the film editor of this thing, not only worked on the Mr. Wong films, but he worked on a lot of stellar films. He broke in with Halperin, okay, who did White Zombie and things, Party Girl. But he also went on to work with Douglas Sirk, Written on the Wind, Tarnished Angels, and Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. So you got to get a job where you can get it. You're stuck with the studio. You're at Universal, you're at Monogram or whatever, and you get a project and you do it. And you do it to the best of your ability. And we see these folks doing that. Now, a couple other things I'd like to talk about. The screenplay for this was written by none other than Kurt Siodmak. You might know Kurt Siodmak from The Wolfman. He also went on to become an interesting director, Bride of the Gorilla, Son of Dracula. So he also was the Donovan of the Brain. He was the brother of Robert Siodmak, who made a lot of great film noir things in the 40s. So we've got the talent of Kurt Siodmak here. Powerful man. Powerful imagination working there. Some other folks that we might want to talk about. Ray Corrigan. Now, we can't forget the men who played apes. Matter of fact, I have a kind of a special, interest. And really have been wanting to do some research on it and working on it on the side of men who played apes. And Ray Corrigan was one of those men who, after he came out of the Western tradition, he was in one of the Musketeers, right, with John Wayne and things. So he had sort of a stuntman angle, kind of a burly man. He kind of gravitated into playing gorillas. And he had a gorilla outfit that he used, and later on led it to Steve Calvert, okay, who was going to kind of carry on the ape tradition. But Ray Crash Corrigan was one of those prime men who played gorillas. Find him later in White Pongo, for instance, and things like that. Does a wonderful job playing gorilla. Some connections also that we might want to make. Maris Rixton, who plays the female lead in this film, also appeared with Boris Karloff in British Intelligence, and likewise later will be in White Pongo, another of the gorilla films that this film, Ape, is so, in line with. So as we talk about the movies that are before us, we shouldn't just laugh them off all the time. These are people who, putting food on the table for their families. They're working in the craft. Yeah, they might not be at MGM or any of Warner Brothers, big studios, but some of them will be. Some of them work back and forth. You got to make a living. And William Nye, Boris Karloff, Kurt Siodmak, Harry Newman, Russell Shungart, all of those men were making a living, and I think that we should be very thankful for what they produced. The Ape, 1940 monogram. Have a lot of fun with this film. Roll 'em, Smokey.